Thank you so much for having me. Raven, thank you so much for everything. I know we've been in communication and going back for like how we was gonna do this, and it's just really an honor. I'll be honest with y'all, I told Paul I was very nervous because when I speak, I don't do that lecture thing where you put the PowerPoint and people clicking. That to me is not me. I want to be my authentic self, and I always want to be able to just give information in my experiences because I'm not a teacher. I'm a human being. I'm an organizer at heart. This is my life. This is what I love to do. And so I'm just going to take y'all through a few things on me, and then I really want to, Raven has some questions, but I really want to dialogue with you. I don't want you to feel like you have to listen to me. I really want to have that open conversation and questions that you have concerns with and things that you want to see change in your community and how I can help you and support you in that is what I really want to do, because this is not just about me. This is about all of us, because we all want the same things. We're all looking for change in our community in some way to make sure that everybody's able to thrive. So just know that that's how I come from it. Is I like to talk to you. We like to have that conversation because what you might know or what I might know, it can work together. So I have a few little notes, even though I do this a lot, talking about what I do, but I still want to make sure, because I always tell people now that I'm over a certain age, I'm like, I got notes now, y'all. So again, Precious McKesson, I hail from the great state of Omaha, Nebraska. I am currently the executive director of the Nebraska Democratic Party. We are small but mighty. I have some awesome staff that I always give props to wherever I go, because without them, I cannot do this job the way that I do it. And so I always say, since I don't know if they're looking, so shout out to Gina, Ron, Jack, Jose, and our chair, Jane Klebb. Many may not know that's how I got my start in this. I'll say, go back to my first campaign I ever worked on was in 1997. I was a senior in high school, and we had to do some volunteer hours. And if you know about the Links, they were doing the cotillion. And during the cotillion, they said, okay, girls, you got to do some volunteer. And so that was one of my volunteers, was to work on a campaign. We campaigned for the first black woman who ran for mayor. And she came up short by 700 votes, y'all. And it was the first election I ever voted in, because I turned 18 at May. So I was able to vote in that election. And I was so heartbroken. But to this day, me and Ms. Brenda Council are still close. She's one of my mentors. And I love her dearly, because she was the first person that really showed she was the first on the city council, first black woman, she made so many historic moments. And so I always looked up to her. And then she became the first black woman, her and Senator Tanya Cook, the first two black women ever elected to the Nebraska legislature. And they were there at the same time. And so, and that's the only time we've ever, well, I should say that ever. We had one woman before then, Joanne Maxey, but we haven't had a black woman elected to the state legislature since 2012. So hopefully one day that'll change. But like I said, also as executive director of the Nebraska Democratic Party, I'm the president of NUSA. NUSA is Neighborhoods USA. Again, everything that I do ties back to community. So neighborhoods is my passion. Politics is what pays me. Because you don't get money and you don't make a lot of money. You don't make no money sometimes in your passion work, especially when it comes to nonprofits. It's kind of hard sometimes. But then I'm also the president of NONA, which is North Omaha Neighborhood Alliance. And we basically support the neighborhood associations in North Omaha, which is actually, it's not, you can't even say it is predominantly African American, but it actually is, I call it a melting pot, because we have so many different nationalities in the community. But it is one of our top lower income areas when you look at the 5 zip codes that we service and that we assist. I'm a product of North Omaha. I've lived in North Omaha literally since I was 2 years old. Even though my parents, my stepdad moved us out further, North Omaha has always been home. It's just home for me. I've never looked at moving out anywhere else, because it's the community that made me who I am, and I love it dearly. So I've been with the Nebraska Democratic Party since 2018, and I always tell this story because this is how I got my title of what we're talking about tonight, and the breaking case of emergency. So many people, when I was working for Senator Justin Wayne in the legislature, and I got to see that was my first time involved in politics, and I was like, ooh, and I was like, so this is what happens? Okay, this is how y'all make laws? Okay. It was interesting, but I enjoyed it, but I still didn't know how it worked. And so Chair Jane Klebb, she's a very powerful woman. I love her dearly. She runs Bold Alliance, which actually stops the Keystone Pipeline. And she has stopped the Keystone Pipeline, and she continues to fight on the front lines of stopping the different pipelines. And she had made a comment. She said she wanted to have someone in the community to really talk about, you know, somebody, a constituency director who really focuses on Black and brown communities. And before she even came to the picture, I was always pulled the, I would pull the different things, say, why don't people vote in these communities? Why don't people vote in my community? Like, I would go through each and every single, like, why don't they vote? Like, what's going on? And so she asked some people, she said, hey, I want somebody in the community to do this work. And so they said, oh, you should meet Precious. And I'm like, so they set up a meeting and we met at this little library. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to go to this. You know, I was like, I'm just going to go because Preston Love, who y'all had as a previous speaker here before many years ago, he's a mentor. He told her to meet me. So I said, okay, I'll go. And I went in there, and that day we clicked. And the first thing I told her, she's like, I really want you to do this work. She was so excited. And I said, well, I would do this work, but you got to promise me one thing, that you cannot use the Black and brown community to break in case of emergency vote. And she was like, what? And I explained to her the one before we got the sign where it says, the little thing that says, hey, this is broke, hit it and pull. I said, that's how y'all treat Black and brown people when y'all get them to vote. Y'all come into the community, y'all tell us what y'all want us to hear, and then once y'all get elected, y'all leave and we never hear from you again. I said, people don't want to do that no more. I said, so if you want me to do this work, you have to give me full control of my work. And I said, and I will only use Black and brown media. I will only hire Black and brown people from the community. That was my goal, or just anybody from the community. They had to be in that community. And I want to be able to do this work, and I'll do it. She said, okay. So I went back to somebody and I said, that woman lied. She's not going to let me do this. And so they were like, why would you say that? And I said, because I don't think she is. And so that April, I went in as a consultant, and I started working for the Democratic Party, April of 2018. And sure enough, she let me do everything that I did. That year was the first election that I worked in a federal race. We had 16 paid canvassers. They were women and men. They were teachers. They were single parents. They were the most awesome group, and we went around that whole entire city getting people registered to vote, getting people elected for office. It was the best. And from there, it just skyrocketed from there. In 2020, they had asked me to become the finance director. Again, I didn't really want to do that. And I was still doing my neighborhood work. I went to NUSA. We had did the conference in Omaha. Then I go to Palm Springs. I get elected to the board. I'm like, oh, I don't have no time to do all this. And from there, we just continued to do the work. And the thing is that when I was doing this work, one thing that when we talk about knowing the value of your voice, I continue to talk to voters. And I continue to ask them the questions like, why don't you vote? What's the problem? And they will give me the same thing, the same question. Or why aren't you active in your community? Because nobody cares. No one cares that we exist. They don't help us. Our roads are bad. The mayor doesn't listen to us. And so I kept saying, well, but if you show up, they'll listen. Like, you got to show up. And so for a long time, I would go to every single meeting. I would go to the point to the mayor blocked me, y'all. She blocked me on social media. So I knew I was effective because I'm like, if the mayor blocks you, you're doing something right. And I would literally get blocked by our mayor because I would ask the questions that some people didn't want to ask. Why are the roads not being done? And then she would go on Facebook, and one time she did this, and that's when she really blocked me. She said that her neighborhood had been already plowed. We had a really major snowstorm, and all of the people in the lower income community was stuck. We was snowed in. And here's our mayor telling us in her private neighborhood that they've already been plowed out, and here we are trying to get to the store. And sure enough, I went on Facebook and I said something, and she blocked me again. I was like, man, this woman just keeps blocking me. So then I would go to her town halls and I'll ask her, when you gonna unblock me, mayor? And she would get really mad. And then it would be security sitting behind me, like somebody from her team would be sitting behind me. It's like they knew I was coming. And then I would compliment her at the parades. She had these little fancy little tennis shoes, and I'll see her walking like, Mayor, I love your tennis shoes. And she would just be like, no, you don't, but I did, but I wanted her to understand, like, it's not that I don't like you, I just don't like what you're doing and you're not listening. And so finally, she unblocked me, and that was that time. She unblocked me, and somebody came and told me, congratulations, we had a Martin Luther King luncheon. I said, what's that for? And they said, the mayor just appointed you to the land bank. Really? I'm gonna be appointed to the land bank? Okay, we're getting somewhere. Me and Jean, I stopped calling her Mean Jean. I stopped calling her that because people were like, that's not nice. So I got a part of the land bank. So I was still doing this community work. We brought NUSA. We had a historic number. Omaha still holds the most people, and I think that's gonna break in 2 weeks with El Paso. I gotta get the numbers of where we at in Omaha. But we had a huge showing and brought so many people to our city to see what we're doing with neighborhoods. And so, again, I'm still in politics, but you have to separate the two. We are a very powerful city. We have a lot of philanthropy, we have a lot of nonprofits, and then you have politics. And sometimes people don't know that they intertwine, but people are scared of that nonprofit status, so sometimes you have to say, what hat is Precious wearing today? Oh, I'm here on neighborhoods. Oh, I'm hearing this. So you have to do that a lot. And so the mayor, once I got on the land bank and start to see different things, again, I'm still wearing my 2 different hats, that's when I really realized how powerful my voice was. And then I realized why I wasn't invited to certain tables. Because I was literally asking the questions that some people just didn't have the courage to ask because they were scared that they were tied to some type of funding, tied to somebody's payroll. And the one thing I would always say was, y'all don't pay me. I don't get my check from y'all. I can say what I want to. I can pick and choose who I want to donate to my organization. I don't have to accept every donation. And at one time, I told my board, there was one particular person, I won't say it loud because we're live, but they might remember I said this, but I told them if they accepted money from one donor, I would walk. And only because I saw what that donor would do to other people in the community. They felt they had this hold on you. And I wasn't gonna be that person. So, fast forward to 2020, when I really had to figure out who I was as a person and what I was gonna do for my community. And that came in politics. Again, remember, people didn't trust voting. They didn't care. It was like, we're not voting. And I'm like, y'all have to vote. We have to make change. And not only do we make change in the presidential, I had to make sure everybody understands the local piece to it. It's not always about your federal, your local piece. You have people in any demographic running for office. Local elections matter. They impact you first. They impact what happens at your schools. They impact what happens at your libraries. It impacts you first. And so as we're out here again, getting people to vote, I got tapped to then leave my role as the Democratic Party finance director, and I got tapped to be the future President Joe Biden's political director for Nebraska. And that was scary in itself because now I'm trying to get a president elected, and I'm trying to get people to understand why. And we did what we were supposed to do, and we were able to receive that blue dot. Nebraska and Maine are the only 2 states that split their electoral votes. So we get 3 electoral votes. So it's not winner take all. And so we secured the vote. Since our election since the Electoral College has passed in Nebraska in 1992, we've only used our electoral vote twice. In 2008 for President Obama, and in 2020 for President Biden. That's the only time we've ever used it. That's the only time we've ever elected in our state, in our congressional district 2, a Democratic president, or say use our blue dot. That's what we call it, the blue dot, because everybody knows what the blue dot is for us, because it's only us sometimes that use it. And so, making history and casting that vote, but again, that's the voice. And I was scared because I said people are not going to separate the two. And we did what we did, and then I went back to working for the party, and again, doing my community work and being a voice. My community means so much to me because I grew up in different parts. I grew up with a single mom for many years. I grew up in poverty. I know what it was to have a mother who was on assistance. Even though she did not let me see it, I knew it. but it was functioning, I had friends who didn't have the same luxury I had, and I sometimes tell people I had the luxury because my mom came from a military family, so it's like that was embedded in her even though we were in the situation we were in. I don't come from a legacy family. I don't come from a family that's involved in politics. I don't come from a family who's involved in any type of community organizing ever. My grandmother worshiped 3 people on her wall when we talk about politics, and it wasn't even politics. That was Jesus, John F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King. Them the 3 people that was on the wall. That's those pictures. So that's as close as my grandma came to politics. If you had those in the house, you knew what you had. And she didn't get to vote for President Obama in 2008 because she passed away in June of 2008. And so my family was not voters. They were not community people. My stepdad went to work at a big factory and he came home. They went to church, they came home. So me doing this is kind of like, my mom was like, why are you doing all this stuff? Sit down. I'm like, no, you got to get involved. You got to get involved. And to be able to get my family excited about voting and about getting involved in community, like they would see me on TV. I've even had family members get mad at me and say they're going to threaten me and call the mayor on me. Because they know she don't like me. I said, why would you call the mayor on me if I do something wrong to you, or if I say something to you, you're gonna get the mayor on me? And it's like, because they know that's one person who can get me is the mayor. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm like, but just vote, But this work means, like I said, it means so much because I have people that come to me who would have never thought about voting, who would never thought about volunteering, and they come to me and they be like, man, because of you, Precious, we out here. Precious, when you get on the ballot, we're going to vote for you. Precious never going to get on the ballot, but I appreciate that. I appreciate it. We also do something that I feel is something I don't talk about too much, but we an organization called Omaha United for Youth, and it's a group of people that grew up in poverty. A group of us that, well, I should say not all of us, but a few of us in there grew up in poverty, and we wanted to be able to give back to the kids, like send the kids to school with new book bags and school supplies. It's nothing like seeing a kid with a book bag, and I know how I felt when I got a new book bag because I saved my stuff, and I was like, Mom will get it like 2 and 3 months early because she was on a fixed income. So somebody got theirs first, and you had to wait till the next month to get yours. You're like, man, Mom, why I gotta wait? And they gotta get theirs first. But we knew why, because she was on a fixed income. So this organization was created, and it was mainly created to be able to give back to our community. And so the first year, we did like 700 book bags. But we did a full day. We did it big. Like the first year, we did it from, if you go on Facebook, it's under Omaha United, if you see all these pictures, we went like, people called us, they said we was bougie because we went the whole, like we took it too far. We took it to the nines. We had all colored t-shirts, the same colored t-shirts. All of our sponsors are on it. We did book bag giveaway. We had food. We had water. We had free haircuts for the kids. So we got barbers to donate their time and cut the kids' hair. We had dance contests. We had different sections of the park, like where people can go and read or they can play games. We even had Terrence Bud Crawford, who is national world champion. He's there, like in the middle, dancing off with the kids. We made this to the point to where the community could come, and what we didn't ask them for, we did not ask them to give us demographic information. We did not paper push. And I say this because so many organizations in our communities, I know that they need it because some of them apply for grants, and you have to have that information. But sometimes people are turned away because they don't want to be a number, or they don't want to be a part of your demographics to say, oh, this is the only way you can get funding. Marking them how many people you had is cool, but actually showing the pictures. I tell people, if somebody asks me, well, do you have people, look here, let me go and take you to this Facebook page. This is where you're going to see where you saw the people at. Because we didn't get like 700 people to put on these T-shirts or 100 volunteers to put on these T-shirts just to come out here. This is where you're going to see it. I'm not going to ask somebody to tell me what is your family size and why you had this. So we've done that as a group. During the pandemic, we had to take care of our community. No one was taking care of our community, and no one was stepping up, and we had people hungry. And I went to some funders, and I was like, hey, we need some money. We need to do some quick bags to give to communities, and we did that so my passion is my community, is what I do. I love it. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go through everything before we start asking questions. Got time? Okay. So as I go through this, I end up leaving and going to D.C. to work for the administration, which was good. It was the best thing. It was something to experience. But I had the best part of it was being able to work under Secretary Cardona, and I was a part of the team when you were hearing about the school reopening. I had the pleasure of being a part of that team and a part of the plan to reopen schools. And how do we do this? How do we talk to families? And so what he decided to do, he put us on a tour. He's like, y'all gonna go to these different states, and y'all gonna talk to these people, and y'all gonna make sure we are doing the right thing. We're gonna be in their face. We're not gonna sit on the back and do it from a newsletter. We're gonna get in their faces and talk to them. And so I had the pleasure of coordinating on his parent and family engagement, coordinating the piece where we got to talk. Again, even though I'm in politics, my job, remember I said in the beginning, it goes back to community. I had the pleasure of coordinating his parent and family engagement piece. Anytime he landed somewhere, he had a roundtable with parents, he had a separate roundtable with students, and he had a roundtable with officials. Those are 3 different roundtables that we would do. And he would be able to go in and have a one-on-one personal conversation with them. And that was the best part of my job, because he got to hear what parents were going through. We got to hear about social emotional learning. We got to hear about the mental health that was going on in our communities. We got to hear about the parents who didn't want their kids vaccinated. We got to hear everything, but who was willing to do whatever it took to make sure their kid was safe, but make sure their kids were learning. And when I left, I cried. But I had to leave because I had to come back home because it was during my daughter's senior year, and I was going back and forth. From D.C., I was going home every 3 weeks to be with my daughter. And it was the hardest thing for me because I'm a single mom. And this is the last year of her schooling, and here I am I've been the only person she's had for this many years, and all of a sudden I take my dream job. And I felt selfish, but she told me to do it. But then it started to get, Mom, do you have to go back so soon? Okay, I'll extend it a couple of days. Okay, I'll leave from here and meet the secretary, different things like that. But when I came back still with the mission of making sure that community first, always. And I've had the honor and the pleasure of doing that in my community and being that face and being that voice for them and giving them not only being the voice, but opening up doors. And I'll close in this before we start to ask questions, and I want y'all can ask me anything. I'm an open book, I promise y'all. I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm not a secret society. I'll tell you whatever you want, long as it's within reason. I say this, and I say this a lot to my allies, because I know that in our communities, we have so many people who want to help, but then we have so many people who just don't know how to help. And I say this to my allies, and I say this to my people who are not Black and brown. This is what I say. You are needed and you are necessary when it comes to advocating for our community. But always remember to make space for the people who are impacted, because these are our lived experiences. You can't speak for us. You can't express how we feel, because these are our lived experiences. And so just make sure whenever you're working in communities, whatever work you're doing, you're advocating, make sure that space is being given to the people who are heavily impacted and let them lead. It's okay. And I tell this because I've seen so many people in the last year, even in my state, who just start to speak for communities of color. And I'm like, you don't know the firsthand, about it. Like, you just can't do that, because these are our lived experiences. And sometimes people always say, well, Precious, what do you know? And I'm like, let me go and break it down to you, okay? I lived in there. And they think, oh, well, no, you didn't experience that. Oh, well, let me tell you, I did. And before I came here, I went by my old house at 4502 Jane Street. I always say the address because people don't realize that. And it was in a time where my mom was a single mom of 3 kids. And the other day, I had a moment and I cried. I sat in front of that house and I cried, because I told myself, only the man above knows why I'm here today. And the fact that I come from where I've come from, and the passion that I have, and I thanked him for that, because I could have been anywhere. And as I was driving down there, I literally had a reflection of me and my sister and them running down the street as little kids. And I'm like, everything looks so big, small now, but as little kids, that was our world. And I had to remind myself of the work that I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And so I'll close in that, and then I'll let Raven take over because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and we will go from there. Okay. Raven, what side you want? This side or side?
Okay, let's make sure my mic is on. Just press it down, right? Okay, we're good. All right, well, thank you, Precious. So I just have a couple questions, and then we'll move into audience questions. So for the people here in person, we have note cards. Abby, our intern, is going to come around with some more note cards and pencils if you need them. Write down your questions, and then we will talk about them. And then for the people joining us online, there is a Q&A portion that you can just type in your question, and we'll get those as well.
All righty.
All right. See, and you were worried, but you did amazing, and your story is amazing.
Thank you.
So first of all, I am curious about can you talk about more what inspired you to become active in the community and politics?
So I've always had a passion, like my mom and then my grandmother, I was always like the nosy kid. I always wanted to be involved in something. So I just always wanted to. But when my brother was injured in 2009, it took me a while to really want to be a part of the community because I was always scared because we still don't know who attempted to murder him. And so I was scared because of my last name and because of him. So it took me a while. But when my daughter went to Head Start, my 8th grade principal, Miss Elena Bass Harvey, she was over Head Start. And when I came in and she saw me, she literally was like, oh my gosh, this was my student. And here she is now enrolling her baby in the Head Start. And so she asked me to be on her policy council. I was like, no. And I was working at Girls Inc. I was like, I don't have enough time. I love what I do. And so that's when I first got involved. And so I got involved in that. And at first it was so funny because somebody said, oh, you're just going to be counting the pencils to make sure that the Head Start teachers don't get the pencils. And I said, that's not what we do. And Miss Lyris Peak there, she took me to my first national Head Start conference. And on the stage was Andrew Young and the late John Lewis. And literally that day, seeing them, and I still have these pictures, these grainy pictures because I had this little old camera, but listening to them talk about how you involve yourself in your community, but then also giving statistics about children that go to Head Start and do early childhood education are normally children that are more successful and go to complete college, and that stuck with me for a long time. And then working at Girls Inc. Girls Inc. is a part of my village. I talk about this to anybody. My daughter had the pleasure of being a legal member, and if Ms. Roberta Wilhelm sees that, she'll laugh because you have to be 5 to go to Girls Inc. Well, Taylor was 3, but because I worked there, Taylor got to come. And her Head Start teacher, Ms. G, was not supposed to do this, but she would take Taylor to the bus to make sure she can get on the bus to get to Girls Inc. And then she would meet me there. And so I got the pleasure for so many years to see my daughter as soon as she came off the school bus. And not just her, but other girls. And other girls who, many of those girls were in foster care, came from single parent family homes. And as the receptionist, I was the first face that these girls would see. And they would come taking off. And it was like, if they lost their tooth, they're in this little treasure box. And they were like, Miss Precious, I lost my tooth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, excited. And I'm like, oh man, I just took that moment from whoever's coming to pick them up. So then I had to remember to recreate that moment. And when the parent comes to pick them up, because I didn't want to steal their thunder, because my kid, I got to see her, they didn't. And so just watching my community and just being a part of so many great organizations really kind of pushed me more to want to be in the community. But then I was scared because I used to always be, I used to always be called I didn't want to be portrayed as an angry black woman because I would always be yelling about stuff. And so I was like, they're not going to invite me. And then I was always like, I was so hyper and stuff. So I had to learn how to, okay, you don't have to be hyper, you're good. And so just being a part of the community and really seeing the impacts that was happening in the community and how I could be a part of it really pushed me. And was that the first part? Was the second part of it about voting?
Community. Well, just community and politics. How you got
Just
involved.
so politics, like I said, it was really by default. My brother had gotten sick. I quit my job in the courthouse instantly in the hospital with my brother. I resigned while he was fighting for his life. I was like, this was like many years, like 2018. I was like, I can't go back to work. I'm resigning. And I literally resigned at that time. And so I went 6 months without a job. And then Senator Wayne, his administrative assistant urban affairs committee clerk, came open. And he was like, Precious, this position is open, but you'd have to drive to Lincoln every day. It was a 45-minute drive. So 100 miles a day. And I was like, oh, and he's like, but it's a good experience. And so that's how I got involved in that. And then learning, one thing in our legislature, which is really, the only time I'd ever been to the state capitol was in the 4th grade when I went to go do a tour, when they take all the 4th graders. So I'd never been again to the state capitol until I went to work there. And it kind of like, it impacted me in a way where I'm like, gosh, there's nobody here like that looks like me. It wasn't really many black staffers. You only had 2 black senators, Senator Wayne and Senator Chambers. So you have 49 senators, only 2 of them black, and you're like, do I belong here? And then you're a staffer. It was a lot. But when I got tapped to the Democratic Party, man, I promise y'all, when I found out that I had a lane where I could speak my opinion, and it's like a weatherman, it don't matter, you can be right or wrong, you still gonna keep a job. I was like, I'm gonna do this. Because I could be right or wrong, win or lose, I was still keeping my job. So I was like, I said, there's not too many times you can lose and still keep your job. So I ended up staying. So I ended up going. And so Chair Clabb, and I always give her so much, me and her have become such great friends and like family. Like, I give her so much credit for that, and then Preston Love and the elders who have been previous elected officials or leaders, because they allow me to be me, and they know I'm authentically Precious. I show up sometimes. This is not me. I'm not dressed like this all the time. I promise. I did this for y'all. Normally, I will come in here with a sweatshirt and a baseball cap on it, and normally a T-shirt that has a message on it. I learned during the pandemic, I can't say certain things, but my T-shirt can say certain things, and so sometimes I'll wear a shirt that says, "Pay me like you pay him." My most recent one is I entered the transfer portal because everybody was transferring. I was like, I need to enter the transfer portal. No one got it. Or my most favorite one is Sorry for the Ricketts Family America, because our governor was no. so yeah, I normally, that's normally me. When you see me, it's normally a T-shirt, baseball cap, and unless it's something really formal. So when I come see good people, I always get dressed up.
You look fabulous.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like the more involved you get, and it just snowballs. So my next question is, how do you balance all that? How do you balance your community roles with work and family?
Number one, I give credit to my daughter, because even during this time, like I started this when she was coming out of junior high, going to high school. But I've always had good, I don't call them my bosses because they're technically not my bosses, but I've had good leadership people in higher positions who really understand that my family comes first. Mm-hmm. And they've always allowed me to be a part of my family's lives and doing different things. Like if my brother is in the hospital and sick, they'd be like, Precious, go. But they know my laptop is right there with me. I'm there. I'm always there. My day literally starts at maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll work all day. I'll do meetings. And I tell my schedule because people think I'm crazy. So I'll do my stuff, and then I'll kind of wrap my night up around 10, 11 o'clock at night. Feed my brother at 8:30 every night between me and my mom or my daughter or my sister when she's in town will help me. And then I go to sleep for a few hours. I wake up, I put him in bed, and then I actually do emails. The best time to get an email from me is between 2 and 3:30, and between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll do that email, and then I'll go back to sleep and then get back up and start my day again. But I do have my rest day. Sundays is my rest day. I'm very, very strict on that. I'll do things, I'll do events, I'll do things with family and friends, but Sunday is my rest day, and I binge watch reality TV shows. But yeah, I honestly don't know how I do it. Sometimes I'll be like, gosh, how do you even order groceries? Or how do you go to the grocery store? How do you do different things? But I make it work. I just make it work. It's hard, but I make it work, and I make sure my community knows I'm always available. I even have a mentee who's about to graduate from high school. She's been my mentee now since Dalia was Delia's maybe 9. And she asked for me, and it was funny because I was like, why'd you ask for me? And she's like, because you always was there, Miss Precious. she came to Girls Inc. And so I have her. I have nieces and nephews. My brother's sons come for the summer every year. I tell them their mom, it's like my birthday gift because she always drops them off around my birthday. And I'm like, gosh, is this a gift for the summer? They're teenagers now, so now I'm expecting them. They won't come for the whole summer this year because they're involved in different things, but they'll come and they'll eat me out of house and home. And then Taylor's now home from college, but it's a lot, but I try.
Mm-hmm. So family and community are clearly very important to you.
Very important to me.
Community building takes more than one person, though. How do you inspire others to join you in being active in the community?
One thing I've learned is not just always talking about me. It's about it's us as a collective. It works together when everybody works together. Do we have our differences? Do we have our arguments? Do we be like, I don't want to work with so-and-so because so-and-so over here doing this? You have that, but we all have the same common goal, and that's to really make sure our community is thriving. So sometimes you have to put aside those differences and say, hey, what is good for the community? It's not about you. And I tell people this and I say this because when I leave this world, my family better not put, number one, I tell people, when I leave this world, that's why it's not just about me. My job is going to be posted most likely at the same time as my obituary because they're going to have to fill somebody. I always tell them that. They get mad when I say this because they think but it's really not a joke, it's serious. And then you are not identified by the work. You're identified by the work that you do as a community, as a whole, by the community, not just by yourself. Mm-hmm. Because one person can't do it all. Mm-hmm. One person cannot do it all. There's some people who have weaknesses and strengths. Everybody doesn't have it all, and so when I encourage people, I really, really try to see how we work together and how we can work together in a good way, and then just encouraging people on the change. And it's not perfect. I promise you, it's not. There's some people who want to reinvent the wheel on the same projects, and you'd be like, how can we collaborate? Like, we're reinventing the wheel. Like, we've been doing this. How do we do this together? And it's just having that conversation and really building that trust. That's one thing that I think that really happens in communities when you're doing this work is the trust factor. Mm-hmm. And once you build that trust, but then also remembering that if you break that trust, it's really hard to get that trust back because then people won't want to work with you.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about earlier your struggles with getting people of color to vote or be more politically active. Mm-hmm. Can you just elaborate on that some more? Like what?
Well, historically, even though people say that African American and people of color vote in high numbers, but they don't always in certain communities. Mm-hmm. They say on a national average, but many people don't trust the system because they don't think the system is built for them. We look at the different things that continue to happen right now. What is happening in the world? We have so many people who are attacking democracy, who are attacking voting rights, who are attacking just the simple thing of having history books in our schools and having us in those history books. And so people don't trust it. And so it's hard to tell somebody to go vote when over here you got somebody saying that they're about to cut Social Security or cut your benefits because they feel that they want to give somebody rich a tax break, you know what I mean? So it's hard. So having those conversations, and it's like you talked about voting and you talk about that, but then you also have to say representation matters. And when a person does not have somebody that looks like them, they really don't want to do it. And so that's why you have to encourage people. I always encourage people to run for office because, again, representation matters. People are going to respond to who they see. My sister said something about a month ago. We were in Philadelphia. I bring my family along with everything that I do. My daughter's the youngest. She's an at-large member of the State Central Committee for the Nebraska Democratic Party, and she's been doing that since she was a member, voted at 17. She couldn't even vote yet, and literally, I take her everywhere, and I make sure, and I'll take my nieces whenever, if anybody's in, I'll always make sure they'll go. And so the first time I've been able to take my sister, because she lives in D.C., was when I would come to D.C. and I let her be involved, and she never was involved. She got to see from the back what I was doing, but I was like, well, Nikki, come on, let's go to the DNC meeting. Let's come with me. And she was like, well, I don't know if I want to go. I said, girl, you're going to have a good time. Come on. And so I took her. She was like, oh, so this is what you've been doing. You've been holding out. I thought you were just meeting. She said, you partying. I said, no, not like that now, Nikki. You got to meet. The party comes at the end. But she had said something to me. We were at dinner, and I literally almost fell out the chair. And she said, I can't believe she said this, and I was so embarrassed. She was like, girl, I don't vote. I said, excuse me? I mean, I was so hurt.
Embarrassing you.
It was, yeah, you in front of my chair. I'm like, girl, I done made history. You talking about you don't vote? And this is what she told me. She said, Precious, I didn't have anybody to be excited for. I was like, wow, you weren't excited. But I understood her. And I said, I can't get mad at her. Now I have to, even though she lives in DC, I'm like, okay, well, these are the things that you need to look at and who you can get involved with, do this. When she said that to me, I went home and it really changed how I looked at when people say they don't vote. And so now, as a community of color, we have sat, and it's funny because when I was driving here, 2 people called me and was like, hey, Precious, we have a list of people that we want to sit down with to see if they're interested in running for office and what office they want to run for. And when I saw this list, it floored me because I never even thought of these people myself. But they're activists. They're doing good things in the community. They have a voice. And so it made me think of my sister, the representation. She has to, in order to get people to vote, and that's no matter where you're at, I don't care who it is, any demographic, you've got to have some people excited to vote in order to get people to be active and go to the polls, no matter what. Mm-hmm. If you're excited about that candidate, they're going to go. If that candidate don't excite them, they'll be like, I'm not going.
So let's talk about your experience as a Black woman in politics. I'm curious about some obstacles or some wins that you've had.
I mean, the good outweighs the bad. I will always say that. But I've had some moments in politics where, as a Black woman, I've had to really question, was this the place for me? And had to really lean on God to get me through a lot. And I'm not a person that goes to church every Sunday. I tell people that real quick. But trust me, I have a really good relationship with the Lord above because I know He wakes me up every day. And I've had elected officials call me a token. I've had things that filed frivolous lawsuit or frivolous complaints. I've had everything, but I'll talk about one story that I normally don't talk about really loudly because it was a time where it questioned where I was at and why my voice, and I felt my voice had to matter, and it was after the George Floyd killing. And we had a city of unrest in Omaha, and on my birthday, actually, so it's coming up on 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. On my birthday, a young man by James Scurlock was murdered. He was a protester, and he was in the neighborhood, in a downtown neighborhood, in a downtown business district, I should say, and there was a white bar owner who was already kind of known for his nastiness toward people, but it's like he was on high adrenaline that night. And they were in front of his bar, and so he claims he was protecting his bar, and there was some issues that happened in front. And that night, James Scurlock was murdered in front of there. And it was hard. It was hard because as a community, we had to come together to figure out, why hasn't this man been charged? Why is this man out? What's going on? And at the time, our county attorney was a Democrat, and I remember having a meeting. We had a meeting at the police headquarters, and it was the police chief, our mayor, our governor, but the prosecutor wasn't there. And it was church leaders, community leaders. We were all around this circle. And I'll never forget, it was a heated conversation, and I'll never forget the governor said, he leaned forward and he went like this, like he was trying to prove his point. He's like, well, where the hell were you people? And that was the turning point. And so just imagine you have all these Black people in the room, and then we hear it because people start getting up, walking away. But then you have people come, and then we had a pastor who went out to the car. He goes live on social media about it. And then 2 days later, he retracts and tries to say he didn't say it. And I'm like, I know what this man said. I was in this room. Like, I know what this governor just said. And so we let it go. But then after that happened, we demanded a special prosecutor we demanded, like, they need to be a special prosecutor. They brung in a black special prosecutor. The special prosecutor basically, to me, did his job, and then they indicted the young man who did this. And that young man ended up, I don't know if it was before or after, well, the end of the night, so at that time, the prosecutor, we had some activists who were really mad at the party. They were like, and it was righteously so, they were upset. And this was in May. This goes up to like September. And the day that we had a visit from Jill Biden, and before they were elected, Jill Biden and Doug Emhoff, and I did this whole briefing with them when they were doing a visit. And I was approached that evening, was like, hey, can you read this resolution? And the resolution basically was a resolution against our Democratic prosecutor, basically saying that he perpetrated white supremacy. The community was mad. And so that night on the call, I read the resolution as the Black Caucus chair. It was seconded, not by me. And I tell people this because people always, at the end, I'll tell you why I say about the second. It was seconded, it went through. About maybe a week or so later, I'm in the timeline, the prosecutor goes in front with all the Republican leadership, the governor, the senators, the Congress people, and he changes his party because of this resolution. And he says, they asked him as he was walking by, do you believe in law and order? He said, no, did you vote for Trump? And he said, yeah, I voted for Trump. He believes in law and order, and so do I. I was like, wait a minute. So he was always, he always felt this way. This is our prosecutor. So it made me think different. And so he was mad, and he said the reason why he changed his party because we didn't give him the respect. And so I say this to say, that was one of my that was one of my moments where I didn't want to know if I wanted to be in politics anymore because the backlash that I got. And I talk about the second motion because no one talks about the second, who seconded the motion. Because everybody doesn't know, if you know Robert's Rules of Order, if it gets seconded, that's the key person you need. I can motion for it, but if that second comes through and they vote for it, that's how you pass. So that happened, and so people always ask me, do I regret that moment of that? And I tell them the only thing I regret doing, I don't regret the resolution. What I regret doing is not giving him the heads up and giving him the courtesy to let him know it was coming. Everything else is cool, but I do regret that piece because that right there, I think he should have known it was going to come. He shouldn't have heard it through the media, and so that's something I regret. But that was one of the key moments in my career where I literally had to think like, is this really a place for me? Because the threats that I got, the anger, but then I was like, you got to keep pushing through.
Mm-hmm. I have just a couple more questions, and then we'll turn to audience questions because we have a ton. People want to know more.
Okay.
So do you have any tips for young people who are looking to get more involved in politics or in their community, but they're not sure how?
So I say this because I feel that young people, as a mom to a young person, I tell them just do it. If they don't give you a seat at the table, like the great Shirley Chisholm say, bring your own chair. Mm-hmm. Bring your own chair. Keep showing up, because eventually they're going to have to let you in. And then I say this to the older generation, because this happened to me also, to our younger generation in our city, is that you have gatekeepers, and you have so many people who have been doing this work for so long, and they're just scared to give up their job. Look, you got to give it up sometimes. You got to let the young people in. The young people, you cannot say that you're for young voices and you want young people at the table and then you don't let them in. Because let me tell you, if you look at how in 2018, was that the shooting in Marjorie Douglas? Was it 18 or was it 20? No, it was 18. I think it was 18 or 19. No, maybe 18. When they had that shooting in Parkland, I literally said, and you start to see all those kids like coming out. I remember sitting on Valentine's Day, I said, they better watch out in October and November, because those babies is going to be able to vote, and they're going to make some noise. And ever since then, you have seen younger and younger people get elected to office and really make people, they even put sometimes they don't even win, but they put their name on a ballot and they make people have to work to get that job. And I think that's what you're going to see now after what happened in Tennessee. You're going to see much more younger people putting their name on the ballot because for so long they were scared because they didn't know. They didn't know how easy it is to run for office. They didn't realize you don't need a lot of money to run for office. I tell them all the time, you don't need that much money to run for office because right now social media is taking over. So them babies control TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. Like my daughter tell me, stay off of it because I don't know how to do it, but I still try to get on there. But them babies run that. They do. And all it takes is for a key celebrity to notice something, and then they'll piggyback off of that. So I tell people, don't gatekeep, because these young people, they know so much. 2020 and that being in COVID and being in quarantine, them babies had a lot of time to watch the news. They had a lot of time to learn what was going on. And let me tell you, they could tell us about what was going on before we know what was going on. And now I say this, and if you can see 2 and 3 year olds controlling a tablet, because my little baby, Bray, he controls a whole tablet. He know how to FaceTime me and everything. Hit in, when I say, well, I'll talk to you later, whoop, he hanging up before I can hang up. So if these 3-year-olds can do that, we know these 18-year-olds are going to make some change, and you have to let them in. You can no longer gatekeep. You can't.
All right, I'm gonna switch to audience.
Y'all done had a lot of oh man.
It's a stack. It's a stack, so thank you. This is an engaged audience. I love this. Okay, so first question. What is your strategy for dealing with the small, mean, well-organized, and vocal minority opposed to your efforts?
Number one, I listen. I listen to them, because again, we will never, the world we live in is not for us to all have the same opinion. Everybody has a different view, but at the end of the day, their road and my road is trying to meet to the same thing. Now, I will say this, there are some people who are really mean and who don't want to listen, and they just have this ideology, like they're just sitting there like, this is the way it should be. And you're like, you can't please everybody. Mm-hmm. So we always try to come to a common ground and just be respectful about it. You know, I recently had somebody who said that I wasn't, what did she compare me to? Gosh, she used something she used, and it was just like, something that was totally not who I was. And all I was just trying to do was help. And so I think when you have people who don't agree, you just have to figure out a compromise. And I think if you listen and don't try to overtalk them or try to still push your views, be open to change, it'll work. But again, we'll never come to, that's what makes us all unique. We all have different ideas and different ways that we think we should get there.
Okay, this question says, how helpful are foundations to the Black and Brown community in Omaha? Are they supportive? Man, you mean like financial? I don't know who asked that question. Who asked that question? You mean like philanthropy? Let me tell you, Nebraska has great philanthropists. They help a lot. They help a lot, and they're very critical and needed to our community. A lot of things wouldn't have gotten done without our philanthropy, but they are giving community. That's one thing I love about Omaha. We have a giving community when it comes to working with nonprofits and working to really give to communities, especially when it comes to children, education. Sometimes people will be like, oh, well, they're doing this, but they're very giving, and I think it shows, because we have a lot of successful organizations. I would say in North Omaha we have too many nonprofits, and everybody knows that. Everybody got a nonprofit. You be like, why you got a nonprofit? What you doing over there? Why you got a nonprofit? And it's like, you know, you got all these nonprofits, but they're not 501c3. So you're like, so okay, so you got a nonprofit, but you still need me to be a fiscal agent. Oh, okay, make that make sense. But again, you know, everybody just got a nonprofit. But we have some great nonprofits in our city. I love them. You know, North Omaha Community Partner Action. That's my cousin Tamika. She's doing some awesome things when it comes to doing diapers, food. You know, she's doing some awesome things. And you have Untamed. We have some great activists and people who have turned their mission into really focusing on the community. And then you know, we got some good funders. The recent CNN interview between former President Trump and Caitlin Collins gave us a good picture of the 2024 presidential elections. How do we impress the importance of the upcoming elections?
Whew. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I saw it and I put a little bit on mute because it kind of number one, how do I say this? I know I'm trying to say it in a nice way. You have someone who continues to deny what happened. And I don't care what party affiliation you with. When you try to overthrow the government, that is not a good, I don't care who it is. And you've seen the different things. And I'll give this example. When you had the Black Lives Matter protest, you had the National Guard, they had so much stuff blocked off. But then you have this protest and it's like, nobody was prepared. And when I was in DC, during the time when the truckers were coming to do that thing, they're gonna close down the Beltway. I said, now I know these fools not gonna do this now. We gonna be stuck again. But I saw how fast they closed down the Capitol and stuff and had to try to, secure DC. And I think, with this former president, what he did is he opened up so much hate and he made it acceptable for people to be hate. But now those people can't go back behind closed doors because they done showed their true colors. They can't go back. And so now you have to watch what's going to happen in 2024. There are still people that have this following. I'll be like, okay, little Jim Jones, they don't drink the Flavor Aid again. Like here they come. You think about stuff like that because I feel like these people really feel that what he's doing is right, and it's not. And so when you literally sit and you sit and deny it, it's like you believe in your own lie now. Like he believes his lie. And last night was a way of showing it, but I didn't watch the whole thing because to me it was disrespectful the way he spoke to Caitlin Collins. He shows no respect for women. He shows no respect for just even democracy and people as a whole. And when you start calling countries different things, and he's a very unstable individual who does not need to be in office being able to control anything. And so we got a lot of work. I say that, and I say that because I know that we're in a nonpartisan, and I say this with all respect. My views are my views. It does not reflect the Jefferson Education Society. It does not. These are my views. So anybody that sees this or says these are my views of who I am, and I am a proud Democrat, and I believe in that, and I'm going to always do that. So I wear my button proudly, okay?
What words of advice would you have for Black leaders that set the agenda for growth for the Black and brown communities and community going to the people for input?
Be genuine about the work you're doing, and make sure that there's people who normally don't have a say is at that table. Yeah. Don't take all of it and say, okay, I'm the leader. It does not take, one person cannot be the leader. It's a group of people to make that change. And you can always elect a person to be a spokesperson, but you need to understand, I'll give this example. We have this ad hoc group in North Omaha where we're basically pushing back against our power district because we have these five smokestacks, coal burning stacks, but they've now down to 2. And we want them to shut them down completely. And they keep playing with us, but we've made some progress. I'll tell you, we made some progress. But we always have to remind the people in the group that this is not about one person. This is a group. This is why they call it an ad hoc group. Do not go to the media without your group. Do not talk to the media without telling your group. Like, you always have to do that, and don't include everybody. Sometimes there's going to be people that you may not want to include. But if they live in that community, they being impacted, give them that choice and give them that right to say, I don't want to be involved. But make sure that you're being genuine and you're being open and inclusive with the people in your community. Because there's times, and be transparent as possible. If you get $50 and you about to give it to tell them, look, we got the little money, we about to give it over here because this is what we want to do. Because as soon as people feel that you get money and you're not telling other people, I'm going to tell you, people talk. People talk. And I said this the other day because I heard this she said that people whisper, and it was in a meeting, and she's not from our city. She said, it's just something about this city. She said, y'all be whispering. And so other people went over their head. They didn't get it. They was like, well, we don't talk loud. What's going on? I said, no, what she's saying is, excuse me, what she's saying is that some of y'all whispering, y'all keep these little cliques, and then you got the other ones who over here loud. And I said, well, I'm part of the loud crew, right? She's like, yeah, you're part of the loud crew. I said, good, I'm good, I'm good. So, huh? Yeah, they dry snitching. So it's like they over here whispering, and you like, no, speak. Like, you don't have to hide everything. You need to tell what's going on. And then you got the other people who causing ruckus, and then they be like, the whispers be like, we don't want y'all over here talking to us because we gonna go. They don't let us in the whisper group because we gonna go tell. So just the whispering, and I love that when she said that. It made me think. I was like, man, they really do be whispering, don't they? But I remember I used to not be the person that couldn't come to the table. They would invite me. I used to get so offended, y'all. My little feelings were so hurt. And I was like, oh. And then I told them, and then I got hot. I was like, oh yeah. I said back then you didn't want me. Now hot, y'all on me. Okay. I had to hit with the Mike Jones on them. They didn't get that one. So I was like, oh, now you want me to come. Okay, here I come. And trust and believe. Now they can't get rid of me. So, and I'd always show up. Oh, if they ask me, oh, I'm coming. And they know I'm coming. And sometimes I know they be like, whoa, Lord, here she come. People would say, I thought she was in D.C. Nah, baby, I'm here. I'm back.
What are your best practices for organizing in predominantly non-Black political structures?
Man. Whew. So Nebraska, especially our city makes about 13% of African American, but we have a big culture, I say, of different nationalities. It's hard because when you organize, it's like, again, it goes back to the allyship. And it's always talking about lived experiences. And so I've not run into that because normally they ask us, they ask what's going on and how can they help us? But again, we have to make sure we remind people like this is our lived experience. Don't ask us about it and then turn around and try to dominate it when this is what's impacting us. And so I think that's one of the big things, like strategies-wise, just talk about the experiences and just remind them asking them how can we be the lead of this and how can we assist y'all, because at the end of the day, we're the ones being impacted by it. Mm-hmm. But I think because we have such great leadership, I have not experienced where I've had to go in and be like, well, this is what we want, do. I think they normally are ready for us because they know if we don't come and they do something, they know, because I promise you, I don't care who you are, I don't care how much money you got. If I think you're doing something wrong, I'm gonna send you a text message and I'm gonna email you and I'm gonna find somebody who knows you. And if I see you in a community meeting, I'm gonna go tap you on the shoulder, be like, can I talk to you real quick? I don't care who you are. Your economic class does not scare me. That's how I look at it. Because at the end of the day, we both came into the world the same way, and the people we gotta end up paying back normally is IRS and student loans. So again, we in the same boat.
When the needs are so great and so many, how do you prioritize what you advocate for?
That's a hard one because it's so many issues that are going on. But what I do is I make sure that I don't put myself in. If there's already people who are doing the work, I end up, how can I support? I don't go in thinking I'm about to, no, how can I support? And then if it's just a simple, hey, can you write me a letter of support for this? Then you write a letter of support. I get that all the time. But I normally try to figure out like in issues that are impacting, like I say, like right now, we have big things going on with funding and stuff. And when you have issues like that where you're trying to get more community involved, you just kind of just play you know your lane. And I try not to put myself in somebody else's lane of people who are doing work. So if your work is women reproductive rights, I'm not gonna put that's not my expertise. But how can I support you in that? If you're doing voting, then I might end up saying, hey, how can I assist you on this one? But then also, how can what part would you need me to play a role in? But sometimes there's times where I could be on a committee and I just don't go, and sometimes I feel bad, but I feel like there's so many people already doing the work that it's no sense in me going, but I still support it, and I still want to encourage other people to support that.
We have a bunch of questions from online.
Oh, say their name so I can know who it is.
Okay. Let's see. Constance Burnett. She's from Erie. She's an Erie person. She's asking about Erie. What can actually be done to bring people of different races together on one accord to actually get things done in the city of Erie?
Number one is actually when it's hard at times to do that, but what you have to do, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. If we take race out of it and just talk about humanizing it, I'm a human being. I say this because if I saw somebody down the street and something was harming them, I'm not gonna stop them and say, what party affiliation are you? Oh, I can't help you. No, you don't do that. Bringing us together as human beings and talking about the issues that are impacting us. But then we also have to understand is that even in the city, certain issues don't impact certain communities. So sometimes it's going to be hard because what might be happening in the Black community may not happen in the white community. What's happening in the Asian community may not be happening in the Hispanic community. But we have to figure out a way to how do we work together, because at the end of the day, all of it impacts us some way, somehow. So when you talk about that, you need to really say, okay, what issues are impacting your community? What issues are impacting your community? And then take that information and then you divide it up some way, somehow, and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to focus on this one and how we can do this and how we're going to do this. Because our kids go to school together. Our kids go to the community center together. We interact with people at different functions, but you have to really understand what is impacting that community and really put that focus on that so that they understand. And I think that's what we need to do, because we always talk about the national stuff. Some of that stuff don't impact people. They don't be caring about that. They care about their food. They care about their gas. They care about those roads. They care about are they gonna have Social Security? Are they gonna have a retirement? That's what people think about. There's some issues that really don't impact, but I tell people, and we say this about the rural and the urban divide, the rural community and the urban community have the same issues. We have hospitals that are being closed. We have mental health institutions being closed. We have really horrible broadband. I mean, you can go, during COVID exposed a lot of that. And I don't know why people still keep thinking that it was okay. But you had people in rural communities who couldn't get internet access. The kids in the urban community were sitting at McDonald's parking lots so they can have internet access. We have the same issues. We just don't know how to talk about those issues because people keep putting color in front of it.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you bring up the rural and urban divide, because we have a civic leadership academy for young professionals. I was in it last year, and our topic was the rural and urban divide. And what we found was it's more of a class thing and an access kind of thing. So it's interesting that you say that.
We have to talk about that. But if we take color out of it and talk about issues,
we all want the same things at the end of the day.
We all want the same thing. Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to live in a good community. Everybody wants they to be safe. People want to feed their families, and people want their kids to go to school and receive the same education that the next kid, or equal. That's what they want, without some of that student loan debt.
Amen. Okay. Constance Radcliffe says, thank you for coming to Erie. Can you share a bit about how you get support from corporate sponsors for your book bag giveaway?
So that is a good question. So what we did, we started asking people. We would just go. Like, for instance, Ideal Water, which is like a water company. We'd be like, hey, can y'all donate us water? They was like, yeah, we can donate your water. We go to Rotel, the food place. Can y'all donate some bread? Yes. But we also asked our community to help us. So we did like book bag drive. We did the book bags. We raised money, but we ended up paying for those with money raised. And then supplies, we asked people to donate to us, and then they would. And then I'm gonna tell you, it was kind of funny because we have a big national organization that does a book bag drive also, but they do their book bag drive, they paper push. I always tell them because they always ask you to put your information on there. And so they was real, like they real set up real fancy. They got their little tubs and little buckets and these big old bins at different grocery stores, so people just dropping stuff. Okay, we see y'all. But ours, we was like ours is is the stuff. Because when you come, you got the DJs, you got all these different people. Like, people was giving us stuff like, hey, we want to help y'all. We have some friends at Walmart, they want to help. But when you ask the corporate sponsors, you're really letting them know, that showing them what their money is going toward. That's something you got to do. You got to show them. They want to see it. They don't just want to hear about it. They want to see it. But then also giving them the option to bring volunteers and be a part of it. That is a way too to get money from them, because they have, a lot of these organizations have diversity and inclusion. They have their different clubs within their organizations. They want to be a part of it. So invite them to be a part of it. And that's what we did. And so that's how we were able to get a lot of our sponsors.
Ann Trulinger says, hello, Precious.
Hi, Ann.
How do you reach underrepresented Black and brown voters and get them involved in Dawson County Democrats of Nebraska?
So she's from Nebraska. It's one of our good leaders. What we have started is we do this, I think, text message banks. In Nebraska, people did not realize that we have Black and brown people throughout our state. And I'll be honest with you, we did a horrible job of, I shouldn't say but we have, because but we didn't know. How do we connect? And I think being more visible, but also, and you can get with Ron, and we will be willing to do a text message bank, and we can be able to look at the demographics and try to reach all the voters in that area, but also just showing up, something that I want to do better at as an executive director is going to these different communities and showing up at their different meetings and stuff, and really engaging with them. And so this summer we'll be doing a lot of that, and that's something I believe in, because people, again, representation matters. If they don't see me, they don't know that we are a part of the process and the political process in Nebraska.
Do you think VP Harris would be a better candidate for president?
I'm gonna bypass that question, y'all.
You don't have to answer that.
I'll just say this. I love Vice President Kamala Harris, and I feel that she's doing an awesome, amazing job. And when you do the job that you do, I think she's doing what she's supposed to do. And right now, they have it set to how they're running, and I'm backing them 100% with what they have.
Okay, how do you persevere in government and politics as a woman, especially coming from your background?
I think of the change that I'm making, honestly. I think of the people that I've impacted. It's hard sometimes. I say it's hard. It's not sometimes. It's hard all the time, because you never can. You never know if you're doing the right thing. You question everything that you do. You question, did I say this right? Everything you say is picked apart. If you roll your eyes, oh, she mad. If you leave early, then they find out when you leave early. If you don't eat the salad, oh, she didn't eat the salad, something's wrong with her. And I'm like, that's not the problem. It's like, as a Black woman, everything is scrutinized. On down to what you wear and how you, and I'll be honest with you, I laugh because when I came to the party, I had hair. I didn't care how I showed up. I had a little curly afro. I wear my afro. I wear cornrows. And I never forget this lady. I don't know who this lady was, but because I never dressed up until after COVID. I kind of went, down. I should say down here. I was like, I'm about to be comfortable. I'm wearing tennis shoes. And when I went to go cast the electoral vote, she called the office and she said, do you think we could raise some money for Precious to make sure that she looks nice when she goes and casts her vote for the Electoral College? And my comms director called me. He said, you're not going to believe this crap, Precious. And he's a former AP writer, so he he said a little bit more. He little white man. He said it real brash. And I was like, what, Kevin? And he told me. He said, this fool just said. And I said, no. He said, so he asked her, he said, well, have you ever seen Precious? Like, do you follow her on social media? He was like, Precious is very fashionable. And he said, as a matter of fact, I think she's already picked her outfit because she keeps talking about it, which I did. I had already had a very beautiful outfit picked out. And so, so I have to continue to say, at the end of the day, there's going to be people who do not want me in the position that I'm in, but there's people who love me. So for all the haters that hate me, I got 10 times people that love me. And so I just continue to go and I say, hey, Precious, just be who you are today, be the best at what you do. And at the end of the day, as long as I'm not sacrificing my morals, my values, and my integrity and embarrassing my family, that's all that matters to me.
In many communities, there are silos, many times of self-interest. Many of us want to destroy or break silos. It may be counterproductive to demolish these. What strategies can we use to combine silos instead of demolish them?
Well, number one, how do I say this? Because somebody gonna be like, Precious, I can't believe you say that. So when you got a group of friends, you know, they got these different silos, you just infiltrate them, you know? Put your friends in there and then try to get them to come together. It's hard because so many people don't understand, like, it's not about you, it's about us. And I had to learn that a long time because it'd be I, me. No, it's about us as a collective, because at the end of the day, all of us, one person cannot do it by themselves. And one person cannot have the glory all the time. It's like, and I say this, I mean, because we have it at home, and you be like, man, why can't you just work with us instead of working against us? But then also, I say this, and I say this with all respect, all due respect. There's always silos in groups or persons who, as individual, you have to look at what they're doing and what are they getting out of it. Because there's at times where money plays a big part. And you have people who will sell their soul for $1. And then you have people, like I always say to me, I've never been a person who is enticed by money. Never. All I want to be able to do is do this work and take care of my family. I can't be bought. And so you have some people who can do that. And it is hard. It's hard, and them people want to be the main person, and you can't break it. So sometimes to get those silos, you have to be able to reach the people, and sometimes it takes having to take some of those silo leaders out. Like look, we about to take you out. We about to infiltrate this one. Look, we about to take over, and they'll be mad, but hey, it just has to be done.
How large is the African American community in Omaha and Hispanic? And this is about demographics, about spitballing. So
I don't know the exact demographics, but I did. Oh my gosh, we just had this meeting recently. We make up about 12% of the city of Omaha, and then I think our Hispanic population may be a little bit more, but then we have our Asian, our API, and then we have our Sudanese, we have Burma. We have a lot of, like I said, we're a big melting pot. We have a lot of communities of color. But yes, we're about 12.
Which is something you don't often hear about in Nebraska.
You don't, actually, Nebraska and Minnesota are one of the top cities where they, refugee settlers. And so, I should say new American. Yes, new American settlers. So we have a lot of new Americans and new citizens and who come for a better life in Nebraska, just like they come here. So we have a lot, and that's another thing I talk about too, because we have tapping into those communities when it comes to voting, especially our Sudanese community. Like we've tried to do our best and to really reach it, but I think it's more again representation. And we had a young man who. Jazari Kwal, who ran for Congress, and he's a Sudanese family, and very, very good young man, and it was good to see the community really embrace what he was doing and really want to support.
What advice would you give to aspiring candidates of color to build connections across the color spectrum for strategies to be successful on Election Day?
So number one, we know it's going to be hard because number one, we know that candidates of color do not receive the same amount of support financially than their counterparts, but using different strategies, using different methods to get support. One thing I learned when I went to the collective PAC, and was so funny, they was like, pull out your phone. He was like, oh, okay, pull out your phone. And then they say, how many contacts do you have? And you were like, oh, let me see. And then at the bottom they said, scroll down and those will be your first donors. Utilize the people that are around you to support you. No one is going to support you more than your friend who really believes in what you're doing, and you have to ask them. $20 goes a long way in a campaign, but it adds up quick too. And just have that confidence when you're asking your family, when you're going to church, like if you're going to a community event, tap into everything. My thing is that some things that candidates who are running for office forget is that you go to these different meetings. If they ask you for your time, ask them for their money. I'm running. Can you donate to my campaign? Utilize the people that have always asked you to come and help them. Use those same people to help you, you know, and really believe in what you're doing and really have a message of hope. Make sure you're connecting with that community and talk about the issues that are impacting them. And don't be afraid to hear the word no, because it's going to happen. And just be genuine and really know that when you get in, go in with intent. Once you're elected, continue the same way that you got elected. Be that person when you go into office. Don't change for nobody. Stand on your principles and your values of what you want and to change, and you'll be successful.
What advice do you have for white voters who want to support candidates of color?
Support them. Support them. I'll never forget this, and I tell this story, and I don't care. I know if there's people on there, they're like, man, Precious, you spilling all the tea today. I'll never forget, we had a candidate that was running, two candidates. We had a black candidate and a white candidate running, and this was right after George Floyd, and all these people had all these Black Lives Matter signs in their yard, but they had the white candidate sign in their yard. Really? I thought Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, there seems to be a disconnect there.
Yeah, so the candidate said something to him. He knocked on the door. He's like, I want to garner your support. And they was like, oh, well, we're supporting so-and-so. He said, but you have this Black Lives Matter sign in your yard, and I'm a Black life. And they was like, oh, well, but we want to, because we know him. But again, you say Black, I'm trying. So you know, I just say support and really, you know, give a candidate that good, like, you know, if you feel like, I feel like sometimes people are scared to say things because they don't want to be called racist. And it's like people walk on eggshells. You don't have to. If you truly are that person's friend, that person will respect you for what you're saying to them, especially if it's coming from a genuine place, you know? And so I just say support, support, support. If it's phone banking, if it's writing postcards, if it's just literally dropping off signs, it doesn't have to be financially. It could be any way to make sure that person's name is out there. It's like, hey, I'll take your flyers to my church. I'll go drop lit somewhere. It's the simple things that really help, and people need that. Just to be able to say, hey, I'm voting for this person. Can you support this person? That will help a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're almost done.
Okay.
I just want to wrap up with talking about the importance of local elections.
Yes. So local elections, I'm a firm believer. Local elections, to me, are the priority. I said that in the beginning. Like federal races, yes, those are great. You know, those are the priority, but those local elections really matter. Last week, was it last week? I think it was last week. What's today, the 11th? Yes, so last week, we, in our Lincoln city elections, out of the 10 seats that we won 7 of those 10. We now hold a majority, 6-1, in our city council in Lincoln, Nebraska, our mayor, and as well as a majority on our school board. When we know that school boards and legislatures are up, those are obviously people. This is the thing I say. Before 2020, people wasn't talking about school boards and legislature. People weren't even thinking about it. No one checking for them. In the state of Nebraska, you only make $12,000 as a state legislature, as a senator, state of Nebraska. So these people, so you know they've been dominated by lawyers, doctors, bankers, farmers. Like people have been able to dominate these seats because they can afford to be a legislature. They can afford the $1,000 a month and no insurance. Me, I ain't going down there for those $12,000 to fight with y'all. I'm not doing that. I got a family. So when you look at your local elections, we have to come out of that frame of mind because, again, that's how people are able to get elected, and people like me from the community can't go down. But it's strategically done that way to keep people from a lower income status to be making change. So again, we have to come out of that frame of how do we do it? Well, we do like they do. We go get us another job, and you might be one of those little nonprofits I talked about when you got all them nonprofits. You might be working at a nonprofit, but you better pay the bills. But local elections really matter because those are where it starts at. And I say that with that school board and that legislature because in 2020, people were not checking for them. But when they started to see that they could not when they started to realize that if they got into the legislature, they can control the electoral college on a state level, on a federal level, because that's where it starts at, that's when they started to realize, oh, okay, we're gonna infiltrate the local. And that's how they feel they have that control. I can't stress enough how your local plays a big factor in your life. I mean, it's from your streets to your sewer to your to building different things. Like, I mean, even though I don't like we had this I call it, I don't want to say the word stupid because I try not to say that, but this streetcar. Why are we building a streetcar in the city of Nebraska? I mean, Omaha. Like, who's going to ride this streetcar? It doesn't even go into the black and brown communities. Like, what is this streetcar going to do? And it's like, oh, well, because we have all these different amenities. Oh, so the people from College World Series can get around. This is for them. This is for the visitors. It had nothing to do with us. But again, if we had people elected and we're getting good people, we wouldn't have to be wasting money on little things like that. So I always say, look what's around you. How do you want to make change? Your voice is your power. You have to be able to impact your city council, your school board, even even I say MUD because that's our utilities, your utilities boards. You know, they make these different hikes. I mean, we're like, why y'all charging us all this money? Like, what's going on? But you can make that change, and that's why local matters. Like, those are the things that are instantly impacting you. And once we are able to get that under control, I think we'll be in a good space when it comes to more of our federal races.
Mm-hmm. So this is a message to everybody. Get out and vote on Tuesday. The polls are open until 8. Local elections are very important. We have school board up, we have city council, we have judges, so make sure you get out and cast your ballot because it's very important.
Very important. Your voting rights, I mean, and I say this and I'll close this with this. If your vote didn't matter, why would there be so many laws being in place to stop you if your vote didn't matter? They put so much emphasis on trying to suppress the vote. That means it's worth something. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to waste my time on something that don't mean nothing. Your vote matters, and you have to exercise that right. And I don't even use the people die for your vote. I don't even use that no more because it don't work. If your vote didn't matter, laws wouldn't be being passed to keep you from voting. They wouldn't be putting up barriers like voter ID, different things, or closing polling places in certain times, or telling you can't have certain boxes in certain areas. They would not be doing that if your vote was not important. So exercise that right, go to the polls, make a change, and really be that voice to make that change, and be unapologetic about it. If you vote for somebody, vote for them. If you don't, if you hold them accountable, if they're not doing their job, they got 4 years. You can find somebody else to replace them and let them know, put them on notice.
Well, thank you, Precious. Thank you for
you.
coming all the way from Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming.